Well, we are coming up to the 10th anniversary of the September 11 terrorist attacks, a day that changed the world. It's amazing to think that a decade has passed. And in that time, so many conspiracy theories have flourished. In fact, whenever I mention September 11 on the radio, I always get emails and calls from people saying it was a setup, it was the US government, it was not Al-Qaeda, it was not Osama bin Laden. There are a range of conspiracy theories. So I thought we would actually have a bit of a chat to two different people. On the line, I have a conspiracy theorist, John Bursill, from the 9/11 Truth Movement. He's based in Australia. John, thank you for your time.
G'day, how are you, Ben?
Good. And I also have on the line from the UK, Mike King. He is a conspiracy theory debunker and an expert in physics. Mike, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, thank you both for having a discussion with us. And look, let me start with not New York City, because one of the conspiracy videos that's been put together surrounds the Pentagon. That's the plane that flew into the Pentagon in Washington. John, let me go to you first of all. You are a conspiracy theorist in relation to 9/11, but you describe yourself as a conservative in regards to your conspiracy. Tell me, what do you make of the Pentagon conspiracy?
Okay, I reject the term conspiracy theorist in my case, but I understand I can be seen as that, but that's fine.
Sure.
Around the Pentagon, we have many questions about the Pentagon, about the air defences on that day. The Flight 77 that approached the Pentagon, a 757, was known about for approximately 50 minutes, and there was actually testimony by Norman Mineta given to the 9/11 Commission, which was withheld, that said clearly that Dick Cheney was aware the plane was approaching the building from 50 miles out and did nothing to resolve the problem. So there's many questions around the Pentagon. There's also questions why we see that many people have created conspiracy theories about, and I know exactly what you're talking about. When you look at the physical evidence, and especially as an aircraft engineer qualified on similar aircraft, Boeing aircraft, we find that it was a very high-speed crash, and consequently only the largest and heaviest parts of the aircraft broke through the recently armoured that part of the Pentagon. That was
one of the main things people point out is, look, the strike zone where the plane allegedly hit the building, you don't see any area where the wings hit the building.
Well, if you look closely enough and you look at the early photos, you'll find that there's literally 1,000 pieces of aluminium confetti all over the lawn, as we would expect with such a high-speed collision. A high-speed collision of that calibre is actually probably 7 or 8 times the kinetic energy that we would see from a normal aircraft crash on landing.
Okay, so do you believe that a plane flew into the Pentagon?
I personally do believe a plane flew into the Pentagon. We have the digital flight data recorder that has been properly cracked recently by scientists.
All right, let me go to Mike King. Let me bring Mike King in just on this one. Mike, an easy one for you, because as you hear from John there, he's not doubting this story at all. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people out there, Mike King, who believe that there was no plane that flew into the Pentagon.
Yes, indeed, but I think the evidence slowly points to the fact that there probably was a plane. It is very difficult to marshal evidence of this nature for a one-off event. In science, to do something scientifically, you have to repeat something. So this is forensic science, and all the murder mysteries and things we know of are very dramatic because, precisely, there can't be absolute certainty about these things. But one thing that does crop up a lot is people say, why wasn't the building, why didn't they fire their anti-aircraft guns and things like that? The fact is the building wasn't defended in the slightest against an attack of this nature, which was never anticipated.
We agree on that one. Let me move to the Twin Towers, and I'll first of all, if I can, go to John Bursill from the 9/11 Truth Movement. He's based in Australia. John, what about the claim that the planes were allowed to hit the Twin Towers?
Now, with the first plane hitting the building, obviously they weren't particularly aware of what the planes were going to be doing, and it's quite normal for them to allow hijacked planes to fly around for a while because they don't want to upset the hijackers and cause further problems. But anyway, with allowing them to happen, I think there's clear evidence of a stand down of the American military. There was many military exercises on that day which served as a distraction. There was blips being introduced into radar screens as part of exercises that were ongoing through that period. And I also reject what our friend here has said from the UK about the fact that they weren't expecting this. There was 11 reports from other intelligence agencies, including probably the best intelligence agency in the world out of Russia, saying that there was 25 terrorists that were planning to hit buildings like the Pentagon. There was exercise previously about hitting the Pentagon with aircraft that had been done in the previous years to 9/11. there was plenty of evidence that America was warned by many countries and also received warnings from its own intelligence agency directly to George Bush on August 4th, where they said bin Laden was determined to attack inside the US with planes used as missiles.
Okay.
All on the record.
Let me go to Mike King, who debunks conspiracy theories. Mike, I mean, let's cut through the mustard here. Well, the big claim to do with the Twin Towers is that it was an inside job. This is what we hear over and over, that this was all an inside job. What do you say to that?
Well, there's two insides to this, if the theory is to stand up. One is that the preventative measures were not taken. And I think looking at the accounts of the jets that were scrambled, what the military say is that the whole apparatus is geared up for attacks from outside. The actual idea that they regularly scramble to intercept flights within America, I'm not sure it's true. There was the occasional flight, for instance, a small light aircraft where the pilot actually either died or dozed off, and the jet eventually had to intercept it across various time zones. But as far as I understand, the jets that were scrambled had an unclear message of what was going on because nobody knew at the time. When I say nobody, of course, there's a huge amount of people involved in this, but the information that got to the pilots was vague, so they followed routine, which was to fly below supersonic, which is the rules, and gather actually in the harbour because they're expecting attacks from outside America.
Okay.
So the jets that were scrambled were just far too late, I think. And
let's go to motive here, if I can, just for a moment with John. John, what would the possible motive be if it was not Osama bin Laden and his cohorts who were behind September 11? What would the motive be in the United States doing this to themselves?
Okay, it's very clear that America, as we've seen over recent periods of time, finances were coming to dire straits. They're running out of oil. They are running out of their own natural resources, but they were in a position with their military that was, half the whole world's military combined, massive military force, that they were in a position after the Soviet Empire had collapsed that they could take over as the sole superpower. And there was a document produced a year before 9/11 by the Project for the New American Century, which was by a neoconservative movement, which is part of the revolving military-industrial complex in and out of government in the US. And these people like Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, etc., said in this manifesto called Rebuilding America's Defences, which was really about American empire, what they call Pax Americana, was calling out for a catalysing and catastrophic event that would encourage the American people to spend the trillions of dollars required to do this. And when Wesley Clark came back from Europe, he was the European Line Commander over there for the American military, he came back and he said that there was a memo out a few days after 9/11 saying they were going to go into 7 countries in 5 years, including
Okay.
Iraq,
All right, can I go to
Libya,
Mike King? Mike, can you debunk the theory that America had a motive to do this awful thing to itself?
The idea that a country will murder 3,000 of its own citizens, I think that is absolutely beyond belief. And I don't think anybody in the command chain, however misguided we may think they are about world policy, to have a policy to murder American citizens is completely implausible.
Okay, you've heard the conspiracies. We're discussing them with both sides of this debate today. Ben Fordham on 2GB will be back in just a moment with more on the